All right, let's get into it. You've probably heard the word bail thrown around all the time, right? In movies, on the news, but what is it really? Well, today we're going to take a little journey through the justice system to figure out exactly what this whole thing is about, piece by piece.
We all know that classic phrase, innocent until proven guilty. It's supposed to be the bedrock of the whole system. But hang on a second. If you're accused of a crime, you can be put in custody before a trial ever happens. So how do those two ideas work together? It seems like a contradiction, right? Well, that exact puzzle is what the entire system of bail tries to solve.
So at its heart, bail is basically a legal agreement. It's the temporary release of someone from custody, and the most important part is that promise, a guarantee that they'll show up for their court dates down the line. It's not a punishment, it's not a fine, it's just a tool to make sure the legal process keeps moving, without having to keep someone locked up when they haven't been convicted of anything.
To really get a handle on this, let's not just talk about a bunch of dry definitions. How about we actually walk through the process? We're going to follow a little hypothetical journey and see exactly when and how all these different types of bail would actually pop up in a real-life situation.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Imagine you have this fear, this feeling, that you might be accused of a pretty serious crime, what the courts call a non-bailable offense, and you think an arrest could happen any day now. Is there anything at all you can do before the police show up at your door? Turns out, yes there is. This is where something called anticipatory bail comes in. You can think of it like a proactive shield, a kind of pre-arrest legal protection. Instead of just waiting for it to happen, you can actually go to a higher court and ask for protection in anticipation of an arrest. It's a way to secure your freedom before it's ever taken away. All right, so that's the proactive approach if you can see it coming. But what about the scenario we see more often? What happens if an arrest has already happened and someone is now officially in police or judicial custody?
This is where regular bail steps onto the scene. And like the name says, this is the standard, the most common procedure after an arrest has been made. A court takes a look at the situation and can decide to grant a release from custody while the whole trial process is going on. This is the kind of bail we're all pretty familiar with.
Now, we all know that investigations can sometimes drag on and on. So is there any kind of safety net in this system to prevent someone from just being held forever while the police are still trying to build their case? Is there a time limit on this stuff?
Oh yeah, there absolutely is, and it's a really fundamental right. It's called default bail. Basically, if the police or investigators don't file their final report, the charge sheet within a specific amount of time, usually 60 or 90 days, the accused person has a right to be released. It's a super important check on power to make sure no one is detained indefinitely.
Of course, the legal process isn't always about these big, long-term stages. Sometimes you just need a temporary fix, a bridge to get from point A to point B. So let's look at a couple of specific, time-sensitive types of bail that are designed to fill those exact kinds of gaps.
So, first up we have interim bail. Think of this one like a temporary pass. A court might grant it for just a really short time while it's still deciding on a more permanent bail application. Then you have transit bail. This is purely a logistical thing. It's basically a travel permit, granted to allow someone to travel from one city or state to another to show up in front of the right court.
So we've seen the what, all these different forms of bail. But to really get it, you got to understand the why. What's the guiding philosophy? What's the big idea behind this whole system in the first place?
Okay, this is the most important part, right here. The entire system is built on this idea that bail is the rule and jail is the exception. Let me say that again. Bail is the rule, jail is the exception. The whole point isn't to punish someone before they're even found guilty. It's all about making sure they show up for their trial. And the decision isn't just random. The court has to weigh everything: how serious the alleged crime is, the evidence, and the person's own circumstances.
And this right here, this simple phrase, just nails it. It really gets to the very heart of the matter. The whole point of bail is to make sure the system is fair, constantly trying to find that balance between an individual's freedom and the needs of justice.
Now, let's zoom out for a second. This whole idea of being temporarily released from custody isn't just for people waiting for a trial. The system also has ways to deal with special situations, and that can even include people who've already been convicted of a crime.
So these are related, but they're definitely different. You see, all the forms of bail we've been talking about are for people who are accused of a crime. Things like parole and furlough, those apply to people who have already been convicted. Then there's medical bail, which can be for either group, and it's granted when someone has a serious illness that can't be treated in custody.
Now, it's really easy to get parole and furlough mixed up, so let's just quickly clear that up.
Parole is usually granted for a very specific, often one-time reason like a family emergency. Furlough, on the other hand, is seen as more of a recurring right that's part of the sentence itself. It's meant to help a convict keep their ties to family and society.
So, as we've kind of seen on this whole journey, bail is way more than just paying some money to get out of jail. It's a really complex, intricate system. And it's all about this constant balancing act, right? Trying to protect an individual's freedom on one side while making sure the wheels of justice can keep on turning fairly on the other.
And that brings us to the final, really fundamental question. You know, every single bail decision, from the most simple to the most complicated, really comes down to this one dilemma. How do we, as a society, hold up that powerful idea of innocent until proven guilty, while also dealing with the very real need for public safety? There's no easy answer, and it's a question the justice system has to wrestle with every single day.